Welcome and thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. I'm your host, Jessica LaRusso, director at Crexi, and today we are thrilled to sit down with Anne Hollander. Before we dive in, a little bit about our guest. Anne Hollander, CEO of Lobby CRE, a 30 capital company, is making an impression in CRE and tech as one of the few CEOs with a background in both real estate operations and rapidly scaling technology companies. Hollander is an expert in strategic planning, partnership development, go-to-market execution, and venture investment across portfolios focused on real estate, technology, and financial services. Hollander formerly held executive leadership roles in product development at Trimble and RealPage. Hollander offers uniquely informed perspectives on real estate management, investment, and the potential of tech in CRE, and integrates these insights to serve and educate property owners, managers, and investors. And with that, let's dive on into it. Anne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jessica. It's so great to be here. I'm having to, mute the Brazil game in the background. World Cup is just taking over my life.
It's super exciting, right? We've been playing it at the office as well, doing some lunches for it too. It's who are you rooting for now?
Well, now that the U.S. is no longer in, I think I'm going to have to go back to a split allegiance between my homeland, the Netherlands, and then, of course, to support Brazil as well. We've got a Brazilian development team that I love and adore. I think they're signing off right about now. They sure would never tell me this, but I know that they're glued to the television.
I was going to say they're live right now. That's amazing. Wow, that's so awesome that you have that team over there. And you've obviously had an amazing career thus far. Before we get started, I'd love to hear a little bit about the journey behind how you got into the industry in the first place.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not been a linear path, and I'm pretty proud of that, frankly. I know a lot of folks who are coming right out of college or fairly early in their career very much believe in this very linear path up to exactly where it is they're going to go. And I got to say, I've taken the road perhaps a little less traveled, but certainly had some fun along the way. So getting into commercial real estate is my path is probably not one I would recommend to many folks. My first jump into commercial real estate was actually through a law school class that I took.
Oh, wow.
And in this class, it was supposed to be just, sort of real estate law, understanding transactions and what all this looked like. But for four type A ambitious law students, one of which came from a family of commercial real estate developers over on the West Coast, we were like, well, let's turn our knowledge into something very, very real. Let's actually go do a transaction.
Oh, wow. So that was during law school, your first transaction that you were, wow.
It was, yeah. So we actually all got together and had a real transaction for a property over on East Burnside in Portland, Oregon. Now, this was many years ago, well before the revitalization of that area. So, but I got to learn quite a bit about not only the transaction process itself, deal making, understanding all the different players that come into this, but also how to do things wrong in every step of the way in conjunction with my colleagues. We ended up with a successful transaction. We didn't stay in that particular deal very long. We sold it right back out, but definitely learned a lot and caught the bug for real estate for sure. From there, I finished off my law degree and found myself in a place where I was trying to figure out exactly what it was I wanted to do with my life. I had decided about 3 days into law school that this was not necessarily the vocation for me. I didn't go in necessarily thinking, okay, she's going to go be a lawyer and she's going to focus on these particular things. And one of the fun conversations I have pretty often is talking to folks about alternative paths other than the vocational path of becoming an attorney. So moved back here to Texas. This, I think, was the first of 5 moves back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And got involved at the property management company and ownership group here in Dallas. It's crazy to me how full circle it all becomes, because just a couple of months ago, they sold off the entire portfolio of 36 assets.
Wow.
But I started there in their marketing and leasing and working with them on all of their properties, getting their marketing and leasing programs up and running, working inside of their property management system for the first time, and really getting my hands around the operations of real estate as a whole. Since then, I've always been very much a fan of technology in a wide variety of industries. Certainly, real estate's not the only place I've been. I've been in oil and gas, I've been in aviation, I've been in construction, I've been in a number of different spots where technology is really beginning to make a difference in the effectiveness and efficiencies that can be generated in these industries. And so I always like to bring this back inside of real estate.
It's such an amazing background and so multifaceted. It has to give you such an advantage by, all those different industries and how they interplay and the intersection of technology with all of them as well. And seeing it from the ground floor up, right? From that property management ownership side. Do you have any mentors that really kind of helped you shape your career path as you were going along, kind of from industry to industry?
Oh, all along the way. I don't think I would be anywhere where I am today without the mentors who were guiding me and pushing me, lending a helping hand when I'd been knocked down a couple of times. My mentors at RealPage certainly were instrumental in not only providing me an opportunity to get back again inside of the real estate organization or real estate industry, but also make some advancements inside of the organization and begin to do things a little bit differently in that business. Certainly across a number of other industries, college and law school professors, mentors have been there next to me the entire step of the way. And without them, certainly would not be anywhere where I am today otherwise.
No, love to hear that. So you mentioned earlier that kind of first transaction that you did, right? And learning through some of your mistakes. Outside of that, or maybe even including that, do you have any favorite mistakes or more moments where you course corrected onto your current path that you didn't maybe recognize at the time was an opportunity?
I like to approach the world as though it's always an opportunity. And so when things are hard, things aren't going exactly the way that I expected them to go. I always look at it as an opportunity of what can I learn from this, and how can I potentially apply this out in the future. Certainly, in seeing the wide variety of industries that I have been in and been a part of, and the wide variety of experiences, I think probably my most favorite mistakes are always the ones where I say yes to things that I know absolutely nothing about. And so you have to go in with this learning mindset of, okay, I need to get up to speed as fast as possible in here so that we can go and do the things that we need to go and do. With this, you're relying on experiences that you've had previously. You are ensuring that your expectations are aligned with everybody else's and what needs to be achieved and what those outcomes need to be. And then it's all about execution. So yeah, I think my most favorite mistakes are the ones where I'm like, okay, I just said yes to something and we're gonna have to go figure this out.
Right. And how do you figure it out, right? And that's all taking from your background and then just having the confidence to go out there and get it done.
Yep, 80% confidence and 20% of the a little bit of luck, and then a little bit of that background and experience.
Love that. Well, yeah, let's get into the weeds of today's topic, which I'm super excited about, all about commercial real estate and data. So, as we get started, to give us some context, you mind giving us a background on what Lobby CRE is and the work that you're doing currently?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lobby CRE is an asset management platform. We help manage and optimize cash flows so that we can get to those faster, quicker returns to the sponsor and investors. So really, we're really focused on ensuring that cash flow is best managed and optimized across what we call the four levers of performance. So bringing together operational information about the asset or investment, along with debt, entity, equity, and of course, then valuation related information. So we're really thinking through the management cycle of an asset or an investment itself in trying to manage and optimize this as best as possible, no matter the market dynamics, which I think is probably a key piece as we look toward the future here.
And would you say that's one of the areas where you set yourselves apart from other asset management companies out there?
Yeah, so a lot of other technology solutions that are in this space are what we would call a point solution, right? They do one thing. They do one thing really, really well. So you have just one tool that does equity. You have one tool that's handling all your operational data. You have one tool that might be handling some of your debt related information. In a lot of cases, and inside of a lot of real estate organizations, that one tool is Microsoft Excel. That's a scary place to be, right?
Yep.
Excel was not built to handle all of your ownership contributions, your waterfall structure, your distributions, and keeping track of all of this. It certainly was not meant to bring together mass amounts of data and try to find that needle in the haystack within the data. And certainly, what we refer to somewhat fondly is the Excel gymnastics that goes in to try to understand how this investment is performing across the board. Trying to get to that and trying to get to an answer there is extremely manual and extremely difficult to do. And so we're providing a different solution into the real estate space that can help do a better job, not only aggregating and standardizing all of this information, but pointing out all of those areas where you potentially have improvement, where things are going well, and then, of course, optimizing across the whole, not just in a silo.
That's amazing. And bringing it all into one suite of tools certainly makes everyone's life a lot easier, right?
Absolutely. If there's one thing I love most about commercial real estate, it's the number of people that are involved. We have a number of very complex workflows where people come in, they come out, they come back in, they come back out based on what it is you're trying to accomplish in just in like an average, ordinary, everyday type of workflow. You get into the deal management components of this where you're trying to make deals happen, right? Everybody's coming in and out. It's this game of hurry up and wait, and then hurry up and wait where people are moving around. But even within the management cycle where things are happening on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual type of cadence, there's still so many people and there's so many things that need to get done. Trying to keep track of all of this either with duct tape and Post-it notes or with Excel or with some older antiquated tools. I know, you can laugh because we all have been there.
Yep.
With
No.
Post-it notes.
100%. And
Trying to
so
keep track of it just doesn't make sense in this space anymore.
absolutely. It's why not use modern technology to, speed up the cycle, make everything easier, like you mentioned. It's amazing that you're doing that work and so helpful to the ownership groups, right? How do you think about data as an essential part of commercial real estate, right? You mentioned doing all this number crunching and, how it's such a manual process. How do you look at it specifically?
Yeah, I look at it as an enterprise asset that can be used for competitive advantage. I think this is one of those areas where my experience across a number of different industries is particularly helpful because I have seen how other industries have basically tackled this kind of transformation where we go from okay, this is the way that we've always done things. This is how we've always done it. This happens here, and then this happens, and then this happens. To a place where we begin to assign value into the data that's generated throughout all of these different processes and workflows that we have when we're managing a real estate asset or an investment. All the way to a point where, okay, now that I'm able to report on this data, what can I do to go and explore it? Okay, can I put different things next to one another? Can I find that unique competitive advantage because I'm seeing something different than where my competitors may be? And then finally, what I call like the holy grail is where we're able to act on things that we're seeing. So being able to go, okay, I have optimized across these 4 primary variables or these 20 variables or these 55 variables. This is the outcome that we're expecting to see. This is my path of how I'm going to get there. Let's go, let's execute and get to that magic point where, of course, our returns are highest, the amount of effort and work that went into it at its lowest between those two options or between that optimization. Really, that's where we're going in this real estate space. And it's a really exciting time, frankly, to be in real estate simply because of that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody wants to, lighten their workload, right, and increase their return on investment. So what you're really saying is you're getting to that actionable return number, right? Now that we've analyzed everything, here's where we can make, the most inroads in terms of our investment and getting there faster.
Exactly right. And allowing the machines to do the things that machines do well and allowing humans to do the things that they need to do well. We know, and there is no technology replacement for this whatsoever. Real estate is a people-driven business. across the board, right? We're all in it to make money. Like there's no question about that whatsoever. But the people here that are inside of a real estate organization are the ones that are truly going to drive this thing forward. But trying to have people do things that machines do slows us down a little bit and makes us a little more inefficient. I mean, I know I have big, long fingers. I fat finger things in Excel all the time.
Yep.
All of the time. The bane of my financial team. When I'm, playing around with models and exploring data, even just about our own organization or about our own real estate assets. So as part of this, then we're never going to get to a place where we necessarily replace the people component of it and the relationships that go into this. But we can get to a place where that can be the focus of our jobs, where that's the stuff that we do. We build the relationships with one another. We build the relationships outside of our organization and continue to leverage people and how people can be used best.
I love that. Oh, that's amazing. So
I know it's weird to hear tech CEOs say these things. They're like, oh no, everything can be automated and it can all be tech. And I truly fundamentally do not believe that at all.
You can't replace the people portion, right? That's what makes real estate go around. And I love hearing that from you, Anne, because it's such an important piece, and people don't want to feel that we're going to be totally replaced by machines, right? But you're making the data crunching, the numbers much easier by having the machines work for you. Kind of similar to what, Crexi does over here in a lot of ways with our product as well.
Yeah,
A lot of similarities.
exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Now, regarding the data, right? What are some of the current challenges that you feel of making data accessible and more available, right? What are groups like Lobby CRE working to overcome those types of obstacles?
Sure. So I think there are a couple of primary obstacles that are slowing people down with regard to getting access to data, right? And this can be even inside of a real estate organization. If I think about my experiences, if I wanted to go get the financial model that was recently done on one of our assets, I'd have to go to our finance team and say, hey, finance team, would you send me this particular model? Or to that financial analyst and say, hey, would you send me this model? That person is going to have to turn that around. They're going to have to take time out of the day to actually send over this data. But then let's say I wanted to put this next to some current operational data, leading indicators that are coming out of this particular asset. Well, now I'm calling the property manager and saying, hey, property manager, would you please send me all of this data? Or I'm calling the asset manager to say, hey, would you please send me this data? They don't work on my kind of time frame. Nor do I expect them to work on my kind of time frame. And frankly, even in large organizations, it can be difficult to navigate all of the different places that you need to go in order to get data, whether that be from a person or even from a system or a tool that's in place. So I think one of the primary challenges here that we're trying to overcome is simply access to data, right? Getting your hands in and around that and opening that up in a way where you have the appropriate level of access to the appropriate kind of data that you should be able to see based on what it is you're trying to do as part of your role or job to be done. I think that's really, really important. I think more broadly in the industry, one of the big areas that needs a lot of help, and I know that there are some great minds working on this, including ours, is around getting to a standardized data model where every system is spitting out the same exact thing across the board. So that if I look at occupancy, for example, in a property, or if I look at my DSCR, it should be calculated the same exact way with the same exact data from that same exact data point. You would be shocked to know that every technology company calculates that a little bit differently, which is infuriating, right? Right? If you're trying to look at two sources of data and they're both different, then you start digging into, well, why are these two things different? This is insane. Can I not just go do my job and run this real estate and go get the returns that I need to go and get? This is one of the major challenges that we are overcoming here within Lobby CRE. All of this standardization, all of this access related. From there, then it's simply education. Hey, what can we do with data? The curious mind is probably one of the most valuable minds in the real estate space, where we can suddenly begin to think about, okay, if I've got all of this data at my fingertips, what kind of analysis can I do? Where can I take this? Where can I go with this? Knowing that all of my data is already standardized, all of my data I have access to, all of it is up to date and all up to date at the same time is something that a machine can do so that I can go and do even more work with this to go find that competitive advantage for myself. This is one of the big challenges and rewards at the end of the rainbow here as I look at the data space within commercial real estate.
I mean, the standardization is so crucial, right? I can only imagine how much time and energy is put towards trying to, model that out on your side.
I know I can hear all of the real estate analysts listening right now going, hallelujah,
Yeah,
she's saving our life. Nobody
absolutely.
wakes up in the morning wanting to get into Excel to try to standardize all of this data. I will tell you that straight up. And so
Well,
we're working to solve that problem.
that's amazing, and I think that speaks to, leveling the playing field in commercial real estate. How do you feel that having access to that data will level that playing field in regards to, all the different participants that are involved in commercial real estate?
Yeah, I think opportunity is just about everywhere, and so for younger generations who are more technology savvy, who are more used to putting data into unique or different types of situations, I think are at an advantage in this new world that we will see over the next 20 years. I think there are a number of opportunities for the older generations who have been in real estate to have that more of that bandwidth to teach more of that art side of things. So
Mhm.
if I can provide a little bit of the science component within Lobby CRE, that's going to free some older folks or some more tenured folks in organizations to begin to teach, which is going to only open up opportunities as well.
Mhm.
I think that there are a number of opportunities for real estate organizations who are leveraging data and making that a valued enterprise asset and part of their strategic platform moving forward. Certainly, we work with a couple, one in particular, Sage Investment Group, who it's three women out of Goldman Sachs who started up their own thing, and they run their entire business straight on the data. Like they know
Wow.
exactly their metrics. They know, and they're looking at it every single day. They're looking at their models. They're tweaking their models. They understand where those models come from and how they were developed. They know where their assumptions are, which also means that they know where they're taking on some risk. And the returns that they've been able to generate back out have really been extraordinary. I love working with that group. I think they're just a model for how real estate could be run into the future.
Trailblazers, really? I mean, that's incredible.
Truly, yes.
Wonderful. Well, you're a really strong proponent of DEI and environmental and social movements, particularly in the CRE space. Can you share a little bit of your experience here?
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly within DEI and ESG, within DEI, we in my coming in the door here with 30 Capital and with Lobby CRE, DEI was a major component of one of the changes that I wanted to make here in my first year. And I'm proud to say that we have made quite a bit of progress on that front. One of the metrics that we set for ourselves was to ensure that our organization was gender equitable, so 50-50 split for those who self-identify. And we have
Amazing.
achieved that. Yeah, we have achieved
Wow,
that this year.
congratulations. That's
So 50% of
huge.
our leadership team are female, which is huge. And in not only a real estate group, but also a group, that has some financial services components as well as
Mhm.
tech. I mean, this is progress in a way that I don't
Absolutely.
think a lot of the industry has seen before. And so I'm very proud of that. I find ESG and DEI both to be particularly important for a couple of different reasons. One, especially from the DEI standpoint, a diversity of opinions and of backgrounds and of experiences only leads to better outcomes in my mind,
Mhm.
right? We have a larger pool that we can draw on to go find opportunities for us to see things a little bit differently, to assess risks that we wouldn't otherwise see. And of course, in the art of the people and relationships component of it, open up relationships that may not have been open to us previously. I find
Mhm.
DEI to be incredibly important there. And there's been study after study after study after study around this, to a point where, even the major investment banks today have some very clear DEI guidance. Alana Wolf, who is, sort of a patron saint of this in the investment banking world, is charged with ensuring that any IPO deal that they work on have a diverse board associated with it, which I
Amazing.
think is not only powerful in opening up opportunities for folks. The fact that an investment bank like that, we're talking millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars here, invested in an outcome that they wouldn't otherwise do. I mean, we know that banks are not going to do things unless they think there's money back out on the other side of it.
Of course.
The fact that they're going in and doing this says to me, okay, we've got buy-in, that this is not only an important thing from a
Hmm.
social component, but an important thing from a financial one as well. I find the same thing true to be, with ESG. I see this as being not just a social good, but also a financial good for a lot of organizations. And where this has been, impact has been largely in the institutional space where we see these headlines. With us here at Lobby CRE, we're seeing more and more of this gain traction inside of the mid market space. So, our retail investors even are beginning to think about ESG and what that means for their particular investments, and even our investors as they go through a generational shift as
Hmm.
family offices change generations. Things that are important to these particular investors and to this new generation of retail investors coming in the door, I think is going to push ESG to the forefront just in the next couple of years.
That's incredible. And you mentioned a few groups already. You're seeing now mid market and these, investment banking groups. Are there any other groups that have made kind of larger moves, or any that you feel might still be a little bit lacking?
We won't call out the laggards here. We'll save that for a one-on-one conversation. But certainly for the groups that are winning here, I'm very impressed with Gresby. I think Dan Winters over at Gresby and that whole team are doing an amazing job, especially on the environmental component, in tracking a lot of these ESG related metrics and advocating for some more standardization of what is it we should track and how is it that we should report. I think that Zoe Hughes over at Nabream has done a ton of work in this ESG and DEI space, really highlighting the importance of this in the commercial real estate space. Certainly, IREM from a DEI and from an ESG standpoint, making some inroads there. So, kudos to Barry Blanton as well as Wendy Becker on that front. But there are a number of organizations who've picked up this mantle
Hmm.
and moving this forward. And to them, high fives and how can I help?
It's amazing. No, love to hear it. And how do you think that Siri leaders and stakeholders can really work to make their business operations and investments more inclusive, more environmentally focused? Do you have any advice for, the
Yeah, I'd say pick a thing that you can measure. Pick something that's impactful to you. I think generally speaking, trying to do all of it at once is really a road to failure. I've tried many
Mhm.
times. I will probably continue to run into that brick wall, but I would say start with something that's comfortable for you and for your organization. For us, it was focus on gender equity in our organization. That's where we wanted to start with our DEI efforts. We're now thinking through, okay, if we expand this, what does inclusivity begin to look like, and how do we bridge those gaps in an in-person and remote and hybrid type of environment, and what does that need to look like in order to create the working environment that we want to see.
Mhm.
We recognize that we've got a number of generations. We've got a number of folks with different skill sets, different backgrounds, different experiences, and creating a work environment where the whole self can come to work and create something that is uniquely valuable inside of the commercial real estate space isn't very important to us as a whole, just as it is for our own real estate portfolio. The assets that we hold here at 30 Capital in the real estate space, and have had for several decades now. We approach a lot of our same guidance, our guidelines, and our initiatives in the same kind of way. So where we're focused on DEI in those particular areas, and what does that look like? Focusing on ESG and what does social and governance look like, especially within a retail investment type of environment.
That's wonderful advice. So, for everyone listening, pick something that you can measure. Don't try to bite off everything at once, and
Right.
then get to work. Love that. Well, we mentioned a little bit about the, employee, job market a little bit. I'd love to talk a little bit more about the market, right? So, the economy is rapidly changing as we head into the new year. What are your thoughts on what's going on?
I wish I had a crystal ball. Is my thought here. No, I will also state that I am in no way an economist. I just play one on podcasts occasionally, including this one. So, what can I say as we look forward? For some of the folks listening on the phone or on this podcast today, this may be your first time through the end of a market cycle, and if so, congratulations, you've made it this far. This is where the battle scars come in, right? This is where things get a little bit harder than where they've been for a little over a decade now. It's been a marvelous, wonderful, very long, very fruitful market cycle. Just about everybody made money in this cycle. If you didn't, you were probably doing something very, very wrong. And in which case, but as we come to the end of this cycle and we come to this recalibration or this reset of expectations, understanding the dynamics that actually generate cash flow out of your real estate assets is going to become particularly important. We've been in this artificial environment where real estate interest rates have been particularly low. We have seen very low cap rates as part of that. But we're soon to see this inflection where cap rates begin to open up a little bit, where interest rates continue to rise. The leverage that you have either existing on your assets today may go negative. There's just so many dynamics here to begin to think about and to begin to try to manage as best as possible. And if it's your first time through something like this, that level of efficiency and effectiveness in managing to cash flow becomes critically important to staying alive in this time. We know there's a ton of dry tender sitting on the sidelines just waiting, right? I hesitate to think about the piranhas that are out there ready to eat all of these guppies. But that's kind of where I'm seeing the market and where those expectations are going to be. Frankly, I'm very excited. At some point in the hopefully near future, the differential between bid and ask right now will begin to narrow and we can get back to actually doing deals again. Looking forward to that time. But really, I'd say a lot of this to some degree is just making real estate normal again.
For sure. So we mentioned a couple of things, right? The rising interest rates, inflation, potential recession. What are you seeing? Maybe let's look like, the first 6 months of this year. How do you feel this is like directly affecting CRE? Maybe, the assets that you work on. How have you already seen that effect or?
Starting to see some effects. Yes. Certainly transaction volume is down significantly. I think if there is one advantage inside of the real estate space is that we typically are about 6 to 9 months behind whatever the stock market is doing. Now, the stock market over the last 6 to 9 months has been pretty volatile, up and down, and the idea of that level of volatility coming to real estate is a little scary, frankly. That said, I think that a lot of folks in the real estate space are relatively well positioned to navigate what that volatility can look like. So maybe it won't be quite as bumpy as what it's been over on the stock market side this year.
That's good news. And you mentioned the ability to cash flow, right? Efficiency being really a primary focus as we go into this new year with the volatility of the market. Do you have any suggestions for how CRE players can become more efficient as they really kind of batten down the hatches for the unknown?
I love that term, batten down the hatches. It's an old school nautical term, and it's one that continues to follow me throughout commercial real estate. I'm not sure how this all came about. Baseball references and nautical references just abide, here in commercial real estate. So what I would do, step one is get a handle on your data. And you cannot manage your performance. You cannot manage your cash flow if you don't understand the levers that are driving that cash flow. So what this means is, getting your hands around all of your operational data, understanding, what's going on at the asset itself at a pretty granular level. Understanding what your debt looks like, what your covenants look like, and ensuring that you are optimized as best as you can be, especially over the next 24 months or so. I know that some folks are going to come to the end of their horizon with regard to their real estate investment, and we've certainly got some equity shareholders out there who are a little stuck between rock and a hard place, with regard to
Mm-hmm.
what that's going to look like. If a sponsor or a GP are going to have to refinance in order to exit the equity partners, that could really change exactly what it is that real estate assets is going to be able to generate following that particular event. So, from an entity standpoint, even we've got the Corporate Transparency Act that we're waiting on final regulations for from the federal government. This is going to potentially affect 25 million business entities, including those within commercial real estate, in providing a lot more transparency and visibility into the ownership structures and contributions of these particular entities and ultimately these assets. All of this says that costs are on the rise. We've seen expenses from an operational standpoint up. We've seen the cost overall of debt going up. Equity having to step in, and so equity deals change, and these deal dynamics change quite a bit. And then of course we get the lawyers involved over on the entity piece, and ensuring that
Mm-hmm.
you're ready to go on that front. All of which is just cost to a general partner. So my advice, step one, get your hands around your data and put ideally a tool, something similar, or if not Lobby CRE, something similar to it, so that you're seeing your data daily, so that you can avoid the
Mm-hmm.
Excel gymnastics that you have to go through to standardize and aggregate all of this data, and then bring everybody around the table together so that you guys can act appropriately as quickly as possible to address any performance concerns.
I love that. Thank you for that advice, Anne. And generally, when there is a shift in the market, right, there always is some area for opportunity. So, another nautical term after the headwinds subside, what do you think the opportunity will be, potentially arising in the future?
Huge, 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 huge. I think there is so much going on in the commercial real estate space. There's a transformation happening within the retail segment. I think office remains to be determined exactly what that's going to look like. But given
Mm-hmm.
kind of where we're at in sort of post-COVID, maybe not completely post-COVID world, but what this is looking like, and the trends and the habits that are still sticking with us that have been generated over the last 3 years. I think there's a transformation on the way for what office space looks like.
Mm-hmm.
From the multifamily space, until single family housing costs go down, until markets begin to cool off a little bit, still going to continue to be a hot space for potential investment, especially with multiple generations now comfortable with apartment living.
Mm-hmm.
So I just see nothing but opportunity out in the commercial space for sure. I also see the opportunity to do things just a little bit differently, using your workflows that you have today and the things that work for you, and abandoning the things that are not, right? Don't spend the
Mm-hmm.
time on the things, don't spend the effort on things that are not generating returns for you, yourself, or for your investors.
Yeah, it's a great time to kind of analyze everything you're doing, right? Cut out what's not working and look forward. So,
That's
on
right.
that note, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to newcomers and developing professionals that are breaking into this industry?
Yeah, I would say go say yes. Go say yes to everything. In
Mm-hmm.
the commercial real estate space, there are so many different roles. There are so many different jobs to be done. There are so many different segments and niches within commercial real estate. Getting an opportunity to see and get your hands around and do the things all across the board in commercial real estate is only going to benefit you at the end of the day. So go out, go say yes. Go say yes to the things that scare you. Go say yes to the things that you have no idea how to do, but you're going to figure it out.
I love that. That's great advice. Awesome. Well, Anne, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to hear your insights, especially on such timely and important topics as we go into 2023. We really appreciate your time today. I know you're super busy, so thank you for taking this morning to sit down with us. Tell us, Anne, where can people find you online if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always find me at lobbycre.com if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how I spend my mornings, afternoons, and evenings, and oftentimes late nights. It's typically there building a platform for the commercial real estate space. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's just linkedin.com/in/Anne Hollander.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure not to miss the next one. Please visit go.crexi.com/podcast and sign up for our newsletter to get the very next episode delivered straight to your inbox. And of course, you can always subscribe to the Crexi Podcast on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to our YouTube channel for video recordings of each episode. Thanks so much for your time. Be well, and be sure to tune in next time.